Okay, so we're going to start from the bottom up, and we're going to review all the parts of the bass drum and then move on to tuning and other things to consider when you're setting it up. Here we go. Here's a list of parts. The item on the top is known as a tension rod. This item on the bottom is known as a bass drum clip or a claw. This is called the lug. The tension rod and the clip affix to this. This is the resonance head. It's the head on the front of the bass drum that you do not strike. This is the batter head because you beat it. These are the drum legs, the bass drum legs, and underneath are the spurs. The spurs occur at the feet of the bass drum legs and can help your bass drum remain in position. It's very important that you apply these only to carpet and not to hardwood flooring because it will scratch the floor and your mom will get angry with you. On most drum sets, you can do something like that will reduce the amount of spurs poking out or eliminate it altogether. On your bass drum there will also be mounting hardware. The mounting hardware is so your bass drum can support your toms. The drum hoop is what attaches the resonance head and the batter head to the bass drum. They are attached using the tension rods and the drum claw or clip going into the lug. Okay, now that we've identified all the parts of the bass drum, I'm going to show you how to tune it right from the very beginning when you affix the bass drum's resonance and batter heads using the drum hoop, tension rods, lugs, and drum claws. Here we go. Okay, so here we are. We have our bass drum, which is empty, and just awaiting a batter or a resonance head. I always start with the resonance head, so the head that you don't play it with. I don't really know why I do that, but I've always done it that way, so that's what I'm going to show you. I think that either are acceptable. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our head. This is our resonance head. And you'll notice there's often a hole or an outline for a hole on these. That's because if you're playing a gig, it's somewhere to put the microphone in to mic the bass drum. So once we get this, we want to put the hole kind of just to the right or just to the left of the center of the bass drum. Now the center of the bass drum, you're going to know where that is by looking at the mounting hardware, because the mounting hardware is always at 12 o'clock on the bass drum. Okay, so once we've done that, kind of just spin it around, make sure it gets a nice fit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our drum hoop and put it on top of the resonance head. Now this is very important. When you get this drum hoop, there's going to be a side that is rounded and there's going to be a side that is flat. Always put the flat side down on top of the resonance head. Down. So once we do that, same thing, kind of spin it around, make sure it's got a nice fit, it's all snug and secure. And then we're going to put the tension rods and drum claws into the lugs and tighten them up. Now when we tighten them up, we're going to do it just enough so that there's no ripples in the skin. And you'll see what I'm talking about. I like to start near the bottom of the drum. So I just simply put on my tension rod into my lug through my drum clip, and then I just finger tighten it. As tight as I can make that tension rod with my fingers. And I do that all the way around the bass drum. Once you have tightened all the tension rods as tight as your fingers can possibly make them, I want you to feel the bass drum head, the resonance head, feel it, and if it feels wavy in any part, I want you to tighten with a drum key the part around where it feels wavy until that goes away. Not too tight, just until the wave goes away and it feels perfectly smooth. Once you're done that, repeat the same process on the batter head. Alright, now that we have our batter head and a resonance head attached to the bass drum, we're going to go ahead and put the pedal on the batter head and give it a nice kick, either with our hand on the pedal or our foot on the pedal. Now the tone of the bass drum should be a nice deep tone, and it should have a little bit of ring after it. Some common problems you might experience may include the bass drum is too highly pitched or there's too much ring. If the bass drum is too highly pitched, keep in mind that has solely to do with how much tension is on the rods in the lugs. So what you would like to do, in my opinion, is you want to have the battered head as loose as possible until that wave goes away. And then from there, use the resonance head only to control the pitch and the tone of the drum. The other problem that you might get is you might get too much ring, as I mentioned. Now what you want to do to fix that is you want to take off the resonance head and put a pillow against the battered head right below where the beater strikes it. So it's a pillow or a towel right against the head. That should take away the most ring. The last thing we're going to deal with in this setup of the bass drum is a thing called bass drum creep. Now bass drum creep occurs when you're playing the bass drum and all of a sudden you know it starts pushing away. You notice it starts to push away from you and you have to keep moving your chair or stool closer and closer to keep up with it. You don't want that. So what we're going to talk about now is how to avoid that. It has to do primarily with the legs. We'll take the legs and extend them out into the floor. We will also make sure that the spur is out. The next thing we want to do is ensure that the spurs of each leg are embedded in the carpet and that the drum itself is 1 to 2 inches off the ground. So a little bit of space in there, about as much up to my first knuckle or in between the first and second knuckle. That's great. What that will do, it will help your bass drum take the weight of itself and dig into the carpet. Alright, the final step in ensuring that your bass drum does not creep away from you when you're playing is making sure that the spurs are dug into the same surface in which you're seated on. So make sure that the same carpet that you're sitting on is what the spurs are digging into. That's important. I used to have a weird mishmash of all these carpets. My bass drum would creep sometimes and sometimes it wouldn't. And it just took me a little bit of thought to be like, why is this? And that was simply the reason, is that as long as your weight is keeping the bass drum spurs in place, the bass drum will not move. I hope that you found this video helpful. And if you have any comments or suggestions, please just send me an email and I'd be happy to update this video.